I'm Julia Davidson, 32 years old, and until last month, I was the head product engineer at my family's medical device company. For 35 years, Davidson Medical Supplies has been our legacy. My patents brought in millions, my client relationships were gold, and my innovations were the future. Then, after one tense board meeting, my parents said those words I never expected: "You're fired." All communication through company lawyer. Before I continue the story that changed my career forever, drop a comment letting me know if you've ever felt betrayed by family, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories about standing your ground professionally. Davidson Medical Supplies wasn't just a company to me, it was woven into the fabric of my childhood. My father Gerald founded it in our garage when I was just a toddler, specializing in affordable home medical equipment. My mother Eleanor managed the books while juggling parenthood. I grew up watching them build something meaningful, something that helped people. Our dinner conversations revolved around profit margins and product innovations when other families talked about vacation plans. By age 10, I was spending weekends at the office, fascinated by the engineers who turned sketches into life-saving devices. I'd sit with prototypes, turning them over in my small hands, asking endless questions that the team patiently answered. Dad would beam with pride, telling visitors, "My Julia has the Davidson engineering gene. One day, she'll run this place better than I ever could." Those words became my North Star. While other kids dreamed of becoming astronauts or veterinarians, I knew my future. I would make Davidson Medical Supplies a household name. When college application season arrived, I laser-focused on engineering programs. MIT accepted me with a partial scholarship, and I double-majored in biomedical engineering and business administration. College was grueling but exhilarating. I graduated summa cum laude, with professors urging me to pursue advanced degrees. Several major medical companies courted me with impressive offers. Johnson & Johnson dangled a six-figure salary and a corner office. Boston Scientific promised creative freedom and rapid advancement. For a moment, I considered these paths, but the family business called stronger. "We need you, Julia," Dad said during my graduation dinner. "The company is ready for fresh ideas, and nobody understands both the engineering and the Davidson way like you do." Mom added, "We always planned for you kids to carry on the legacy. Thomas handles operations, Stephanie manages marketing, and you'll lead product development. When the time comes, you'll take over as CEO. It's what we've been preparing for." I returned home, and within 3 years, I developed 7 key patents that revolutionized our portable oxygen delivery systems. I personally brought in 12 major hospital chains as clients, expanding our institutional sales division by 45%. Revenue increased dramatically under my product lines, and my team grew from 4 engineers to 15 talented professionals who respected my leadership style. Dad introduced me at My relationship with my siblings was mostly harmonious, though not without friction. Thomas, 2 years older, handled operations but lacked the technical understanding or client rapport that came naturally to me. He'd often seek my advice on technical specifications while pretending it was merely casual conversation. Stephanie, my older sister by 4 years, managed our marketing department adequately but sometimes seemed resentful when my innovations became the centerpiece of promotional campaigns. The employees nicknamed us the Davidson Dynasty, though many privately told me they saw me as the true successor. I built deep relationships with our manufacturing partners, understood the regulatory landscape better than anyone, and maintained personal connections with our most valuable clients. Harold Williams, our chief strategy officer who'd been with the company almost since its founding, became my mentor and advocate. A grandfatherly figure with 40 years in medical device manufacturing, he taught me the unwritten rules of the industry. "You're the future of this company, Julia," he told me during one late-night strategy session. "Your parents know it, the employees know it, and most importantly, the market knows it. When Gerald and Eleanor retire, you'll take this company to heights they never imagined. I believed him. I believed my parents. I turned down subsequent recruitment attempts from competitors, canceled plans for an MBA, and even postponed personal milestones like buying a home, focusing instead on growing Davidson Medical. The company wasn't just my employer, it was my inheritance, my responsibility, and my future. My engineering team became like family. We celebrated birthdays with cake in the conference room, helped each other through personal crises, and cheered each successful product launch. Lucinda from electrical engineering, Tyrone from software development, Barbara from quality assurance, they trusted my leadership and brought their best ideas to me first. Everything seemed aligned for the succession plan Mom and Dad had outlined. In quiet moments, I allowed myself to imagine sitting in the CEO's office, steering our family legacy into the next generation, perhaps someday watching my own children learn the business as I had. How quickly certainty can unravel. The 35th anniversary celebration of Davidson Medical Supplies should have been triumphant. We rented the grand ballroom at the Marriott downtown, invited all employees and their families, major clients, and industry partners. Dad gave a speech chronicling the company's journey from garage startup to industry competitor. Mom teared up during the video montage showing decades of company milestones. I expected an acknowledgement of the succession plan during this symbolic moment. Instead, Dad's speech emphasized returning to traditional values and honoring the original vision of the company. Thomas stood prominently beside him during the closing toast, while I was positioned off to the side with other department heads. The following Monday, I noticed my calendar invitation for the weekly executive strategy meeting had disappeared. When I questioned my assistant Amanda about it, she looked uncomfortable. "The meeting structure has changed," she explained hesitantly. "Your father's office sent a memo. It's now limited to Gerald, Eleanor, Thomas, and the CFO." I marched to my father's office, but his assistant Jeffrey informed me he was unavailable. "He's in meetings all day, Julia. Perhaps you could email him." Over the next 2 weeks, employees noticed. Tyrone from my engineering team approached me in the hallway. "Everything okay with senior management, Julia? The team's picking up on weird vibes." Suddenly, Thomas is sitting in on product development meetings taking notes, but not contributing. I reassured him, but privately my concern grew. Harold confirmed my suspicions during our monthly lunch. "Watch your back," he warned, lowering his voice though we were at a restaurant 10 miles from the office. "Something's brewing. Thomas and Stephanie had a closed-door meeting with your parents last week." When I walked by, they went silent. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, my salad suddenly unappetizing. Harold's weathered face crinkled with concern. "I've been in business long enough to recognize a power play. Your brother and sister might be positioning themselves against you. Your patents and client relationships make you valuable, but also threatening to anyone with ambition and less talent." I dismissed his concerns as paranoia, but the evidence mounted. My latest proposal for an innovative remote monitoring device, potentially our most profitable product line, yet languished unreviewed on my father's desk despite the market research showing immense potential. Craig Phillips, purchasing director for Midstate Hospital Group and one of our biggest clients, called me directly, bypassing the official channels. "Julia, is everything all right at Davidson? We submitted that order expansion proposal 3 weeks ago, and we're getting the runaround from someone named Thomas. We're used to working directly with you on these matters." I assured Craig everything was fine, though my stomach knotted as I spoke. After hanging up, I tried again to schedule time with my father. His assistant offered a 15-minute slot 2 weeks away. Instead, I cornered my mother in the company kitchen as she prepared her afternoon tea. "Mom, what's going on? I'm being excluded from key meetings, my proposals are ignored, and Thomas is suddenly involved in my client relationships." She stirred honey into her cup, avoiding my eyes. "Nothing's going on, dear. We're just restructuring some processes to be more efficient. Thomas needs broader exposure to company operations." At the expense of relationships I've spent years building? The Phillips account just called me confused about why their proposal is stalled. She patted my arm. Don't be dramatic, Julia. The company doesn't revolve around any one person. We'll discuss this at a more appropriate time. She walked away, leaving me stunned by her dismissal. That evening, I tried talking with my sister Stephanie, hoping for insight or alliance. We met at a wine bar she favored, and after her second glass of Chardonnay, her guard lowered slightly. You've always been the golden child, Julia, she said, swirling her wine. Dad's little engineering prodigy. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow? Why can't your marketing campaigns be as innovative as Julia's products? Julia brought in another major client. Stephanie, what new markets are you targeting? I never asked for special treatment, I protested. You never had to, she replied bitterly. But things change. Companies evolve. No one stays on top forever. Her words chilled me, confirming Harold's warnings. Walking to my car afterward, I called Harold. I need to know what's happening, I told him. Can you find out anything more concrete? 2 days later, Harold texted me to meet him at a coffee shop several blocks from the office. His expression was grave. I accessed the shared drive for the executive committee while setting up the quarterly review, he said quietly. There's a folder titled Reorganization Planning. Inside was a draft of a new organizational chart. Thomas is listed as CEO designate. You're not on the chart at all. My coffee turned cold as Harold continued. There's also correspondence with Robert Winters about contract review. He's the company lawyer, Julia. That night, I couldn't sleep. I reviewed my employment contract, searching for clauses about termination or intellectual property. The documentation was vague. We'd operated largely on family trust rather than legal precision. The next morning, I arrived early and used my administrative access to search my parents' digital calendar. There it was, a board meeting scheduled for Friday with a single agenda item, leadership transition planning. My name was noticeably absent from the invitation list. Friday morning arrived with the weight of impending doom. I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit, a charcoal pantsuit, cream blouse, and the pearl earrings my parents had given me when I joined the company. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized the worried face staring back at me. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in our largest conference room. Though uninvited, I arrived 5 minutes early and took a seat at the table. Board members filtered in, mostly longtime friends of my parents who had held their positions for decades without challenging management decisions. My father stopped short when he saw me. Julia, this is a closed meeting. I'm the head of product development and engineering, I replied calmly. Any leadership transition discussion directly affects my department and the projects under my supervision. Thomas and Stephanie exchanged glances. My mother looked pained but said nothing. Very well, my father conceded, though his expression hardened. Since you're here, you might as well stay. Robert Winters, the company lawyer, distributed folders to everyone except me. I noticed Harold receiving one, though he wouldn't meet my eyes. As outlined in the proposal before you, my father began, Davidson Medical Supplies is entering a critical phase of market competition. After careful consideration and consultation with the board, we've developed a strategic leadership transition plan to position the company for continued success. He clicked through a presentation that clearly had been prepared well in advance. Market analysis, competitor profiles, 5-year projections, all building to the inevitable conclusion. Therefore, we propose the following executive restructuring, my father continued. Effective immediately, Thomas Davidson will be appointed Chief Operations Officer with a clear path to CEO within 18 months of my retirement. Stephanie Davidson will be promoted to Executive Vice President of Business Development, overseeing both marketing and client relationships. The silence hung heavy as board members processed the information. I waited for my name, for any acknowledgement of my role in the company's success. It never came. What about Julia? Harold finally asked, breaking the uncomfortable silence. My father cleared his throat. Julia has made valuable contributions to product development. She will continue in her current role, reporting to Thomas, with adjusted responsibilities to be determined. The blood rushed to my face. Adjusted responsibilities? I've generated 60% of our new business through my innovations. My team has delivered 7 patented products that form the backbone of our current revenue stream. No one is disputing your technical contributions, my mother interjected smoothly. But leadership requires more than technical skill. It requires a certain traditional approach that maintains the company culture we've built. Traditional approach? I repeated incredulously. You mean a male CEO? Is that what this is about? Don't make this about gender, Julia, Stephanie said, rolling her eyes. It's about who has the complete skill set for executive leadership. And that's Thomas? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Thomas, who needed my help last month to understand basic regulatory compliance issues? Thomas, who couldn't explain our own products to the Phillips account? Thomas flushed red. That's uncalled for. I've been with this company just as long as you have. This decision wasn't made lightly, my father interrupted firmly. The board has reviewed all factors and believes this structure best serves the company's future. I looked around the table, searching for allies. Most board members studied their folders, avoiding eye contact. Only Harold looked troubled, but even he remained silent now. This is a mistake, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I've dedicated my career to this company based on the understanding that merit and results would be recognized. I've turned down multiple competitive offers because I believed in our family legacy. Your commitment is appreciated, my father replied coldly. But the decision is final. The board has voted unanimously. Without my knowledge or input, I pointed out. Were you even going to tell me before announcing it company-wide? My mother sighed. Julia, dear, we knew you might be disappointed initially, but we expected you to be professional about this. The company needs stability and traditional leadership to move forward. Traditional leadership, I repeated. You keep using that phrase. What you mean is male leadership. Dad founded the company, so his son should inherit it, regardless of qualifications or contributions. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Stephanie's mouth tightened into a thin line. I've earned the... That's enough, my father snapped, his patience visibly eroding. This isn't a negotiation. The decision has been made. Either accept your role under the new structure or... The unspoken alternative hung in the air. Or what, Dad? I challenged, rising from my seat. Or you'll fire your own daughter. The person responsible for most of your recent growth. The conference room fell silent. My father's face hardened as he glanced at my mother, who gave a slight nod. Yes, he said fine. I looked at each face around the table, my father's stern resolve, my mother's practiced neutrality, Thomas's barely concealed triumph, Stephanie's satisfaction, Harold's resignation, and the passive acceptance of the board members. I've given everything to this company, I said quietly. Nights, weekends, holidays. I've sacrificed personal relationships and opportunities. And this is how you repay loyalty and results with betrayal and nepotism. That's quite enough melodrama, my father declared, standing up. Your emotional reaction only confirms our concerns about leadership readiness. This meeting is for board members and executives. Since you clearly cannot accept the board's decision, your employment is terminated, effective immediately. The words hit like physical blows. Terminated. From my family's company, from my inheritance, from my life's work. Gerald, Harold began, perhaps we should discuss this privately before. The decision is final, my father interrupted. Julia, please clear your desk and turn in your access card. Human Resources will prepare your separation paperwork. I stood frozen, unable to fully process what was happening. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Thomas examined his cuticles with feigned indifference. Stephanie actually smiled. And if you're considering any rash actions, my father added, Be advised that all communication going forward should be directed through our company lawyer. He nodded toward Robert Winters, who adjusted his tie uncomfortably. You're firing me, I stated flatly. And cutting off direct communication with my own parents. You're fired. All communication through company lawyer, my father confirmed coldly. Your emotional volatility leaves us no choice. I looked at the man who had once placed me on his shoulders to see assembly lines, who had framed my first technical drawing in his office, who had promised me a future leading the company he built. I straightened my shoulders and found my voice. Understood, I said simply. 2 security guards escorted me to my office, while my former employees watched in stunned silence. Amanda, my assistant, burst into tears as I methodically packed personal items into a cardboard box. Tyrone from engineering appeared in my doorway, his face a mask of confusion. Julia, what's happening? Why are security guards here? Asked Thomas, I replied, my voice hollow as I placed framed certificates into the box. He's your new boss. Barbara from Quality Assurance pushed past security. This is ridiculous. You can't just remove Julia. She's built half this company's product line. The guards exchanged uncomfortable glances, but maintained their positions. I paused, looking at my team gathering in the hallway. Thank you, but please don't jeopardize your positions. I'll be fine. Lucinda slipped me her business card with her personal number scrawled on the back. This isn't right, she whispered. 30 minutes later, I sat in my car in the parking garage, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to drive away. 7 years of dedicated work. Countless nights and weekends sacrificed for product deadlines. Family holidays spent discussing business strategy rather than creating personal memories. All ended with a corporate execution performed by my own parents. Tears came suddenly, violent sobs that bent me over the steering wheel. I called Allison, my closest friend since college, who had warned me years ago about working for family. They fired me, I managed between sobs. My own parents fired me from the company I helped build. Where are you? She demanded. I'm coming to get you. You shouldn't drive like this. An hour later, we sat in Allison's kitchen as I recounted the morning's events. They kept saying the company needed traditional leadership, I explained, wrapping my hands around a mug of tea. Code for male leadership. All my contributions meant nothing compared to Thomas having the right chromosome. Allison's outrage was validating but couldn't dull the pain. What about all your patents? The client relationships you built? They can't just erase your contributions. Her question pierced through my emotional fog. What about my patents? My employment contract had unusual terms since I was family. Harold had once mentioned that my particular arrangement gave me certain protections regarding intellectual property. That night, sleep eluded me. I stared at the ceiling of Allison's guest room, replaying years of memories, my father teaching me to read engineering diagrams, my mother bragging about my MIT achievements, family dinners celebrating new contracts I'd secured. How could they discard me so easily? My phone buzzed at 7:30 the next morning. Robert Winters, the company lawyer. Ms. Davidson, I'm calling regarding your separation from Davidson Medical Supplies. We need to schedule a meeting to discuss confidentiality agreements and transition protocols. His clinical tone made my stomach turn. I'll have my lawyer contact you, I replied, then hung up before he could respond. I spent the morning Diane reviewed my employment documents carefully, her expression growing, increasingly interested. This is unusual, she noted, tapping a clause in my contract. As a family member, your employment agreement contains special provisions regarding intellectual property. The company has usage rights to your patents, but you retain ownership. This is not standard practice. What does that mean practically? I asked. It means you have leverage, she replied, removing her reading glasses. Your patents are licensed to Davidson Medical, but that license can be revoked under certain conditions, including wrongful termination. A small flame of hope kindled. Potentially, she confirmed. No, I admitted. It was drawn up by the company lawyer. We were family, I trusted them. Family businesses are often the most complicated legally, Diane observed. Emotional bonds cloud proper business practices, but in this case, their oversight might work in your favor. As I left Diane's office with a strategy forming, my phone buzzed with messages from Davidson Medical employees expressing shock and support. Among them was a text from Craig Phillips, the Mid-State Hospital Group purchasing director. Just heard the news. Completely blindsided. Our partnership with Davidson was built on your expertise. Call me when you can. Similar messages arrived from representatives at 4 other major clients. Harold texted cryptically, "Chaos here." Thomas fumbled the West Side Hospital call badly. Board members questioning decision already. Stay strong. That evening, over dinner with Allison, my shock transformed into something harder, more resolute. I gave them everything, I said, pushing pasta around my plate. I turned down Johnson & Johnson's offer 3 years ago, twice the salary, stock options, advancement opportunities. Boston Scientific wanted me to head their R&D division last year. I said no to everything because I believed in the family legacy. I believed my parents valued merit and contribution. What will you do now? Allison asked. I considered the question carefully. They think they can just replace me, that my value is only in showing up each day. They don't understand that I am the value my knowledge, my relationships, my innovations. You could join a competitor, Allison suggested. Any medical device company would snap you up in a heartbeat. No, I said, the path suddenly clear. If they want to play by strict legal terms rather than family loyalty, I'll do exactly that. They fired me and cut off direct communication. Fine. I'll communicate through actions they'll understand perfectly. That night, I wrote 2 lists: assets I controlled and leverage points I could use. My patents topped the list, followed by client relationships I'd personally cultivated. I also had detailed knowledge of upcoming products still in development, regulatory strategies I'd created, and the loyalty of key engineering staff who had worked directly under me. If Davidson Medical wanted, they had underestimated me as a daughter. They would not make the same mistake with me as a competitor. The next morning, I met with Diane Morgan to formalize our strategy. She brought in a patent specialist who reviewed the 7 key innovations I developed. These oxygen delivery system patents alone are worth millions in licensing fees, the specialist confirmed. And your contract gives you remarkable control. You could essentially pull the rug out from under their entire product line. Diane drafted official notices to Davidson Medical revoking their license to use my intellectual property effective immediately, citing wrongful termination and breach of implied contract. This will get their attention, she assured me. Companies like this rely on continuity. Disruption is their worst nightmare. While Diane handled the legal maneuvers, I began contacting key clients. I didn't disparage Davidson Medical outright, that would be unprofessional, but I was honest about the situation. As you know, Craig, I personally developed the monitoring systems your hospitals have implemented, I explained during my call with Mid-State's purchasing director. I'm no longer with Davidson Medical, and they no longer have rights to my patents or ongoing development support. What does this mean for our existing systems? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Legally, they'll need to cease using my patented technologies. I'm establishing a new venture that will offer superior alternatives with continuous support and development. By day's end, I'd spoken with representatives from 12 major clients who collectively accounted for over 40% of Davidson Medical's annual revenue. Each conversation followed a similar pattern: initial concern, followed by interest in maintaining their relationship with me rather than the company. Next came the team-building phase. I contacted 8 key engineers and specialists who had worked directly under me, people whose talents I respected and whose loyalty I trusted. 7 agreed to meet for dinner that evening at a private room in a downtown restaurant. I won't sugarcoat this, I told them once appetizers had been served. I'm starting a new medical device company focused on next-generation monitoring and delivery systems. I believe we can build something better than Davidson Medical, more innovative, more responsive to client needs, and more meritocratic in its structure. Tyrone, my lead software engineer, spoke first. I already updated my resume after you left. The place has been chaos. Thomas called an all-hands meeting and couldn't answer basic questions about product roadmaps. Barbara from Quality Assurance nodded. Your parents are in damage control mode. They're telling everyone this was a mutual decision and part of a planned reorganization. I'm in, declared Lucinda, my electrical engineering specialist. Davidson won't be the same without you. But I need to know, are we on solid legal ground here? My non-compete is pretty standard. We've reviewed everyone's contracts, I assured them. By dessert, all 7 had tentatively agreed to join my new venture, pending formal offers. The exodus would leave Davidson's engineering department gutted of its most experienced talent. The following day, I leased temporary office space in a business center 15 miles from Davidson Medical's headquarters. I registered in NovaCare Medical Technologies as a corporation and began the process of transferring my patents to the new entity. While building the infrastructure for my new company, I received a call from a venture capitalist who had been tracking my work at Davidson Medical. I heard through industry channels that you've parted ways with the family business, said Martin Goldstein of Summit Ventures. We've always been impressed with your innovations. If you're considering a new venture, we'd be interested in discussing funding options. By week's end, I had secured preliminary financing commitments, office space, a core engineering team, and expressions of interest from major clients. I was moving with the speed and decisiveness that had made me valuable to Davidson Medical, except now that value would benefit my own company. The first sign that my strategy was working came in the form of a harshly worded legal letter from Robert Winters. The document threatened litigation for tortious interference with business relationships and misappropriation of trade secrets. Diane's response was methodical and devastating. She highlighted the specific language in my employment contract that preserved my patent ownership, documented the wrongful termination, and pointed out that client relationships I developed weren't proprietary to the company. Their position is legally weak, Diane assured me. They're hoping to intimidate you back into the fold or at least slow you down. Harold called from a burner phone on Sunday evening. You've created quite the situation here, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. Thomas is completely overwhelmed. Your father had to personally call the Phillips account after they threatened to cancel all orders. The board is asking uncomfortable questions about the succession plan. How are my parents handling it? I asked, surprised by the twinge of concern I still felt despite everything. They're in denial, Harold replied. They didn't expect you to fight back so effectively. They thought you'd either accept the demotion or just take a job elsewhere and lick your wounds. They underestimated you, Julia. They forgot who taught you to be tenacious. Later that day, I received notification that Midstate Hospital Group had formally canceled their contract with Davidson Medical, citing concerns about continuity of technology support. 2 other major clients followed suit within hours. My phone rang constantly with former colleagues seeking positions in my new company, clients inquiring about future products, and industry contacts curious about the dramatic split. I maintained professional composure in every conversation, never disparaging my family personally while making the business case for my new venture crystal clear. Each night, I returned to the small apartment I'd rented, exhausted but driven by a clarity of purpose I'd never experienced before. The betrayal still stung, but it had catalyzed something unexpected: complete independence and the freedom to create something entirely mine. A week after my termination, then my phone rang with a number I recognized immediately: Robert Winters, the Davidson Medical Company lawyer. Ms. Davidson, Robert Winters began, his tone markedly different from our previous interactions. I'm calling to discuss a potential resolution to our current situation. I believe my lawyer made our position clear, I replied coolly. All communication should go through her. With respect, he pressed, This matter has escalated to a point where direct discussion might be beneficial. Your parents. My former employers, I corrected. A pause. Yes. Davidson Medical's board has authorized me to arrange a meeting to discuss mutually beneficial terms. Would tomorrow morning be possible? I considered refusing but decided information was valuable. 9 o'clock at the Hilton downtown. My lawyer will attend with me. The next morning, Diane and I arrived early to secure advantageous seating. Robert entered looking distinctly uncomfortable, accompanied by my father's longtime friend and board member Walter Jenkins. Thank you for meeting with us, Robert began after awkward introductions. The board recognizes that recent decisions have created challenges for all parties. We believe a compromise might be reached. We're listening, Diane replied when I remained silent. Walter cleared his throat. Julia, the company is facing significant disruption. 3 major clients have suspended contracts pending resolution of patent licensing issues. The engineering department is severely understaffed following key departures. The board is concerned about meeting quarterly projections. These sound like management problems, I observed. I'm no longer part of management. We'd like you to return, Walter stated bluntly. I laughed, genuinely surprised by their naivety. Return? After being publicly fired and escorted out by security? After being told I wasn't qualified for leadership because I don't fit the traditional model? No, thank you. Perhaps we were hasty, Walter conceded. Reorganizations are complicated. Mistakes were made in communication. This wasn't a communication problem, I countered. It was a values problem. My contributions were dismissed in favor of nepotism despite clear evidence of superior results. Robert interjected, your parents recognize the situation could have been handled better. They're prepared to make significant concessions. My parents haven't contacted me directly, I pointed out. They chose to terminate our relationship, both professional and personal. Now they're sending emissaries rather than taking responsibility themselves. The meeting continued for 2 hours, with increasingly desperate offers from Davidson Medical: higher salary, executive title, equity packages. I declined each one. I'm not interested in rejoining a company that fundamentally devalued my contributions, I explained finally. InnovaCare is already operational with financing secured and client contracts pending. The opportunity cost of returning to Davidson Medical is simply too high. As they prepared to leave, clearly defeated, I offered an alternative. However, I would consider a strategic partnership between our companies. They exchanged surprised glances. What kind of partnership? Walter asked cautiously. InnovaCare can license specific technologies back to Davidson Medical under strict terms. We could also establish a joint venture for hospital system implementation. But I will remain independent, and any agreement would require significant changes to Davidson's leadership structure. The family won't surrender control, Robert stated flatly. Then they'll surrender market share instead, I replied evenly. My terms aren't negotiable. Think it over. After they left, Diane smiled approvingly. Masterfully handled. You've created leverage from nothing in just 1 week. That afternoon, I learned through industry channels that Thomas had spectacularly mishandled a presentation to West Side Medical Group, unable to answer basic questions about products he supposedly oversaw. Meanwhile, InnovaCare received formal interest from 2 more major healthcare providers. Harold called again, this time from the office. Emergency board meeting this afternoon, he reported. Thomas and Stephanie are panicking. Your father looks 10 years older. The financial projections without your patents and clients are disastrous. And my mother? I couldn't help asking. Quieter than usual, Harold replied. I think she's realizing the magnitude of their mistake. The following day, Robert Winters called again. The board has reviewed your partnership proposal and is interested in further discussion. They've authorized me to negotiate preliminary terms. Excellent, I replied. My lawyer will send over our requirements. Diane prepared a comprehensive document outlining our conditions, InnovaCare would license specific patents back to Davidson Medical for a substantial fee. I would retain complete autonomy over InnovaCare. Thomas would be removed from operations and restricted to administrative roles. An independent board would be established with equal representation from both companies. Robert called after receiving our terms. These demands are unprecedented. The family will never accept removing Thomas from operations. Then we have nothing to discuss, I replied calmly. InnovaCare is prepared to proceed independently. We've received inquiries from 3 Davidson competitors interested in strategic partnerships. 2 days later, I learned that Stephanie had stormed into my father's office, furious about the company's declining stock value and the blame being assigned to marketing rather than the leadership crisis. Thomas reportedly locked himself in his office after a disastrous client call where technical questions left him speechless. Robert called again. The board has reconsidered your terms. They're prepared to accept most conditions with minor modifications. They also request a private meeting with Gerald and Eleanor. All communication through lawyers, I reminded him, echoing my father's words. That was their decision, not mine. Julia, Robert sighed, dropping the formal. They chose business over family, I replied. I'm simply respecting that choice. The negotiations continued for 3 more days, with incremental progress toward agreement. Finally, Robert called with news. The board has accepted all terms. Thomas will transition to a non-operational role. Independent directors will be appointed. The licensing agreement is approved as proposed. All we need is your signature. Send over the final documents, I instructed. My lawyer will review them. After Diane confirmed the agreements met our requirements, I signed the partnership deal. InnovaCare would remain independent while providing licensed technology to Davidson Medical. I would have no formal role in the family business, but would maintain oversight through the joint venture board. Within days, client confidence in Davidson Medical began to stabilize. The stock price recovered slightly as analysts noted the strategic partnership with InnovaCare described as an innovative startup founded by former Davidson executive Julia Davidson. InnovaCare secured permanent office space and expanded to 25 employees, including several respected industry veterans attracted by our nimble structure and innovative approach. I worked relentlessly, channeling the pain of betrayal into creating something genuinely new. 1 month after my firing, I received a handwritten letter from my mother, delivered to my office rather than my home. Julia, it began, we made a terrible mistake. Your father's pride and outdated notions caused us to lose not just a brilliant executive, but our daughter. The company is stabilizing thanks to your generosity in the partnership agreement. But our family remains broken. Please consider meeting with us, not as business associates, but as parents who miss their child. No lawyers, no agenda, just reconciliation. I placed the letter in my desk drawer, not yet ready to respond. The business wounds were healing through legal remedies and commercial success. The personal wounds would take longer. 1 year after the day security escorted me from Davidson Medical, I sat across from my parents at a neutral location, a private dining room at La Maison, a restaurant equidistant from our respective offices. No lawyers, no siblings, no business agenda. My father looked older, the confident businessman now diminished by humility. My mother's eyes carried the weight of regret. I had agreed to this meeting after months of reflection, not for business reasons, but because some wounds can only heal through direct confrontation. Thank you for coming, my father began, his voice lacking its former authority. What we did was unforgivable as parents and as business leaders. We let pride and outdated thinking cloud our judgment, my mother added. We valued the wrong things and hurt the person who contributed the most. I studied them carefully, searching for the calculated manipulation I'd grown to expect. Instead, I saw genuine remorse. The partnership between our companies has been successful, I acknowledged, keeping emotion from my voice. InnovaCare has exceeded our projections, and Davidson Medical has stabilized. We're not here to discuss business, my father said quietly. We're here because we lost our daughter. The company could prosper or fail, and it wouldn't matter if we couldn't repair our family. His vulnerability surprised me. Gerald Davidson had always defined himself through business success, measuring relationships through productivity and results. What happened to Thomas? He resigned 3 months ago, my mother replied. After the 4th failed client presentation, he admitted he wasn't suited for operations. He started a restaurant with friends, something he apparently always wanted to do. And Stephanie? Still handling marketing, but with a different attitude, my father explained. This experience changed her. She's been taking executive education courses, working to earn respect rather than expect it. I nodded, processing this information. And you too. They exchanged glances before my father spoke. I've stepped back from day-to-day operations. The new CEO, an outside hire with 30 years in medical devices, has implemented many of the changes you proposed years ago. I should have listened then. We both should have, my mother added. Our family legacy isn't the company, Julia. It's the values we instill. And we failed to honor the very excellence and innovation we claim to value. The conversation continued through dinner. I read about your new pediatric monitoring system in Medical Device Quarterly, my father mentioned. The reviewer called it revolutionary. That's all you, Julia. Your vision, your execution. As dessert arrived, my mother reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but bridging the space between us. Can you ever forgive us? Not just as former employers, but as parents who made a terrible mistake. The question hung in the air as I considered all that had transpired. The betrayal had been profound, cutting through family bonds I'd thought unbreakable. Yet the pain had forced me to create something I might never have built otherwise. Forgiveness, we don't want you to, my father said, surprising me. The woman you've become, independent, resilient, visionary, that's someone we deeply respect, even if our actions caused that transformation in the worst possible way. We parted with tentative plans to meet again the following month. Not a full reconciliation, but a beginning. In the year since my termination, InnovaCare had grown to 60 employees and developed 4 new patented technologies. Our partnership with Davidson Medical functioned smoothly through professional channels, while personal relationships slowly began to heal through separate efforts. The experience transformed. I also learned that standing firm in your worth doesn't mean burning every bridge. The partnership agreement allowed both companies to thrive while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Sometimes the strongest position comes from creating mutual benefit rather than mutual destruction. Perhaps most importantly, I discovered that sometimes betrayal, painful as it is, forces growth that comfort never could. Had I continued in the prescribed family path, I might never have built something truly mine, never fully realized my capabilities outside the family shadow. The conference room at InnovaCare now displays a simple framed quote, "When one door closes, build your own house." It reminds me daily that our greatest limitations are often the ones we accept without question, and our greatest opportunities sometimes arrive disguised as painful endings. My parents and I will never regain the uncomplicated trust we once shared, but we're building something perhaps more valuable, a relationship between equals, based on earned respect rather than obligatory roles. As for Davidson Medical, the path forward isn't about forgetting betrayal, but transforming it into wisdom. Not every broken relationship can or should be repaired, but every broken expectation offers the freedom to build something new on your own terms. Have you ever faced betrayal that ultimately led to unexpected growth? Drop a comment below sharing how you transformed disappointment into opportunity. And if this story of standing your ground resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need encouragement to value their worth. Remember, sometimes the greatest success comes after someone tells you you're fired, because that's when you discover what you can build entirely on your own.